And welcome into the Tuesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. Hope everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. Joe Rexrode back on the program this morning after stifling me with Kuharski the last 3 days of last week. Rexrode, good morning. How are you? What's going on?
I'm doing okay. Yeah. So did Karski wear on you? Did he kind of did he get a little?
He's good. He's good.
Okay.
I think he was legitimately upset by but certainly game one of the Knicks. Like if he walked in the next day, it felt like somebody punched him in the gut. Like he was really upset about the Knicks when he had not really cared about him to that point, but he was all in after that first game.
Good. I'm glad to hear that he got some misery out of that. Unfortunately, they kept their stuff alive barely the other day, but hopefully he can suffer through that loss coming up. Real quick, I just want to shout out. While I was gone, got a kid graduated.
Yes.
So good job, Brennan. Congratulations to the Knights who graduated, and also to Raptor Rugby. We took third in the nation. Couple big wins. The team that beat us was ridiculous. Some team from California, they end up winning it all like by a big margin. But third place game won that. So successful weekend.
Very nice. Third in the nation on the rugby front and a graduate. That's a successful weekend. That's a busy weekend for the Rexrode household. So good stuff there on that front. We got a lot to get into on the program here today. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean will be with us at 8 o'clock. We're going to get into Vanderbilt and Tennessee, another edition of that rivalry on the baseball diamond this weekend. We'll get to the draws and the regional for both Vanderbilt and Tennessee throughout the program today as well. We've got some Titans love that was shown over the weekend to get into a little bit later in the program as well. And, of course, we'll take your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Joe, before we get into the baseball part of this, I do want to get your thoughts on where things stand in the conference finals in both the NBA and the NHL. Oklahoma City gets a win last night, so they're up 3-1 in that series, going back home for Game 5. Indiana up 2-1 in the Eastern Conference Final in a series where the home team has not won a game yet, so we'll see if Indiana can change that tonight as they head into Game 4. On the NHL side of things, it looked like Florida was going to pull off a sweep. Carolina puts together a win yesterday, which I think is probably delaying the inevitable, but we'll see what happens on that front. And Edmonton with back-to-back wins over the weekend against Dallas to go up 2-1 in that series. So what do you make of where things stand in the conference finals in the NBA and the NHL, and what is the most intriguing series to you?
Yeah, well, it's not Florida Carolina, although kudos to the Canes, but I think that's going to be a gentleman's sweep, which is what they call a 5-game win, I guess. I might be Stars Oilers is I think that's got potential to be special. And man, you have to be so impressed with what the Oilers are doing right now. I think it's over between the OKC and the T-Wolves. I think I was just so impressed with OKC last night and how they just answered every single thing. It wasn't a great night for Ant-Man or for Randall, but everybody else went nuts. And Jalen Williams, along with Holmgren and then SGA, the MVP, and he should have been the MVP. That's one heck of a trio. And I think Knicks Pacers has been amazing, So, Knicks Pacers or Oilers Stars, those two series are, potentially great, but I feel like Indiana's going to make it 3-1. And it's going to, and they'll end up winning the series. But the games have been ridiculous.
Yeah, no doubt. And the games have been awesome in that series. It's pretty incredible what McDavid and the Oilers are doing. I watched them. I watched the entire game the other day, and they just feel like, I don't know. I think on a mission probably gets used too much, but they kind of feel like they've been through it before. They're revved up, and it feels like they're going to win. Like, I still think Dallas, when they're firing, is the best overall team in the Western Conference. Number one, they're not firing right now. Like, they've had a lot of guys go cold. The Rupe Hintz injury is huge. Like, if he can't play, that's a big deal. He gets slashed in game 2. He wasn't able to play in game 3. He had to move Granlund to center. And as Predators fans know, like, I like Granlund. Granlund is probably better served on a good team on the wing and not playing down the middle, and they've had to move him back to center. So the Hintz loss is a big deal for them. But like McDavid the other day, he's just lights out. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. And they broke the plays. Like, PK Subban did a good job of kind of breaking down some of the plays that he was able to make out there, and how it takes basically just one slight minor mistake, and he's just going to make you pay for it. Like, Dallas was down 2-0. They allowed 2 goals in 36 seconds in the first period, and McDavid was one of them, obviously. They played great. Like, Dallas was awesome in the second period. They finally get it to 2-1, and then at the end, they give McDavid about, I don't know, a body's length worth of room, and he takes the puck, and he just makes you pay, and you're all of a sudden, like, after all that work you've done to chip away and make it a 1-goal game heading into the third, McDavid basically just grabs you by the throat and chokes you, and you're done. So, like, I don't know how they're gonna slow him and Draisaitl down. Like, those two are just unbelievable right now.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like maybe this is their year. Although they're going to have to beat the Panthers.
It looks like we're headed for a rematch.
Yeah, and of course that's not going to be easy. But maybe this is enough to keep him in Edmonton, huh? Is this enough? Will they win the cup? Will he be all right hanging around?
I know the rest of the NHL is looking at it like, please blow it. Please blow it.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be a heck of a lot of fun if for some reason he was out there. But yeah, I think the destiny might be a cup for Edmonton this year.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I think we're definitely trending towards the rematch of the Stanley Cup Final, which, again, like going from Edmonton, Alberta to Sunrise, Florida, and the travel involved with that, I'm sure is going to be a lot of fun for them. Went the distance last year, 7 games, and who knows, could go 7 again this year, Joe. It's a lot of flying.
I mean, weren't there like some reporters who had to have 3 connections and then they barely made puck drop? I mean, oh God, they almost need to just adjust, just have a pre-adjusted schedule if that's the matchup, and just add days in there.
I agree. Just treat it as if you're traveling by horse carriage. We'll see you guys in a week. Really far away.
Do you remember the mileage? I know
don't,
we talked last
but
year.
It's an absurd number. I remember that.
Yeah.
It's an absurd number. It's crazy. I think Oklahoma City is going to win. I think they're the best team. We'll see who ends up coming out of the East here. But Oklahoma City, it kind of feels like this is their year. They were talking on Unsportsmanlike the other day, to which Kuharski took a great offense to this, which I'm with them. They started talking about how Oklahoma City is going to be the next dynasty. It's like, well, let's start with 1. Like, if they can get to 1, then we could start maybe, I guess, that talk. But let's let them get to 1 first.
Yeah, I definitely think, I get it. Like, I understand looking at their core and saying, geez, man, like Chet Holmgren, it's still like a toothpick. Like, he's still getting better. Like, wow, they're going to be ridiculous. So I get it. But yes, I don't think there should really ever be that word used until a team wins a champ. And some people would say, okay, you won 1 championship. We're talking about a dynasty, but at least now you have started.
Right.
You put the huge foundation down. So yeah, that's fine. Until you do that, yeah, come on. But I will say too, I mean, if they lose more than a game the rest of the playoffs, I'll be shocked. Like, they're going to beat whoever they play, probably probably the Pacers in 5. They're going to beat them in 5. Like, they're just way better.
Tennessee and Vanderbilt face each other again over the weekend in the SEC tournament. The draws are out for the regional for both sides as well. We'll get your thoughts on all that. 615-737-1025. Very interesting baseball weekend when setting up a very interesting regional, which at least one of these fan bases is pretty upset about the draw. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe, Vanderbilt smacks Tennessee over the weekend. They win 10-0 in a run-ruled game on Saturday after 7 innings. Just complete domination by Vanderbilt. They get a 3-2 win the next day against Ole Miss to wrap up another SEC tournament championship. And now that the regional brackets are out, Vanderbilt, with their efforts, Joe, has earned the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. So we'll get to that part of it here in just a second. But I want to start just with another win against Tennessee. So that's a recent turn back to Vanderbilt in the rivalry here. Tennessee owned Vanderbilt for a couple of years, and Vanderbilt has done a really nice job over basically the last calendar year, starting with the beginning of the SEC tournament last year, and then flipping it around, winning the series this year, and then a dominant performance in the SEC tournament in the semifinal on Saturday against Tennessee. So what do you make of Vanderbilt, the way they're playing, and the recent turnaround that they've had of kind of turning the tables on Tennessee lately?
It's just, well, yeah, it's really, for one thing, just fantastic for this rivalry. Think about this just within this season. Tennessee has been number 1. I could still make the case, when you consider Liam Doyle and you got Marcus Phillips and some of these guys who are very draftable. Liam Doyle's going to be a top 5 pick. You can still make the case Tennessee's as talented as any team out there and still had a great season. They just kept losing all these series late, so it flips. Meanwhile, it's almost like I guess almost like more like the tortoise in the hare. I was going to say the little engine that could, but Vanderbilt just kind of snuck up on us. Like if you told me a month ago Vanderbilt's going to be the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, I would have said, "What? How? It doesn't make sense." But they've been, they had their bumps too. I think they were like, I don't know, with 10-9, maybe 11-9 in the SEC. Of course, they've won 8 in a row now. They've been great defensively all year. It's the most underrated part of baseball. They are an elite defensive team. They have a bunch of arms, and now they're starting to hit the ball of the park a little bit. But they beat Tennessee with 13 singles.
Yeah.
And they run, and that's the kryptonite for Tennessee. So this year, it's a bad matchup for Tennessee specifically because Vanderbilt has a bunch of guys who can steal bases, and Tennessee cannot stop anybody from running. So that's part of it. But just the overall, the way that Vanderbilt has sort of just risen and turned into this amazing team with no one who's going to go in the draft this year. Right? So you could look at it and say, you could look at it with a little bit of skepticism and say, okay, but do they have the big time talent to really do this? Because we've had some good Vanderbilt teams recently that just have not, they just haven't gotten it done in the tournament. So we'll see. But right now, they just look like an overall solid, all around, no real weaknesses team. And I still look at Tennessee, and I see a team that absolutely can get to Omaha. So it's a great rivalry, and it's great for the rivalry to have it flip like this. It has to do it needs to go back and forth, and now it's gone back to Vanderbilt.
It has, no doubt about that. And again, they wrap up another SEC tournament championship, the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA. Now, some Vanderbilt fans are upset about their draw here, Joe, because you've got, obviously Wright State and ETSU, and Louisville is in their regional. So kind of their non-conference rival anyway is Louisville, and
Right.
They've got Louisville as the number 2 seed in the bracket coming to Nashville for their regional. So there are some Vanderbilt fans that look at that and say, man, we're the number 1 overall seed. How do we end up with Louisville as the number 2 seed in our bracket? And are upset about that. On the other side of things, Tennessee did enough work in the SEC tournament to end up hosting. So there was some question about that heading into the tournament, but they will be hosting, and they are the number 14 seed nationally. They'll have Miami of Ohio, their first game. They get Cincinnati coming in from the Big 12, and then number 2 seeded Wake Forest. So beginning on the Vanderbilt part of that, Joe, what do you make of their draw and the some Vanderbilt fans upset about the idea of Louisville coming in as the number 2 seed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at all. And I think they've had Louisville at least a couple times. I think at the regional level over the years, in the Corbin era, and it's just, I mean, geographically it makes sense if you look around the whole field. I mean, I mean, they definitely, unlike some aspects of college athletics, the baseball tournament actually tries to make sense when it comes to geography. So, I'm not surprised by that. It's a tough team, but that's what you expect. You don't expect it to be easy. I don't think it's like some sort of ridiculous draw or anything like that. As for Tennessee, Wake Forest is really interesting. They are a very talented team, hasn't put all together, but very dangerous. And then Cincinnati, one of the best running teams
Yep.
in college baseball. So that's another thing to think about if it gets to a Cincinnati Tennessee matchup at any point. Is that as a again stylistically that can be a problem for the Vols. Then of course you look ahead,
Yep.
Vanderbilt potentially. For people who don't know, it's four teams, it's double elimination. The top 16 teams host, and the top 8 teams would also, those are the national seeds that would also host super regional. So Vanderbilt is lined up to possibly play Southern Miss in Nashville in a super. Tennessee lined up to go play Arkansas in
Oh
a
yeah.
super, which, oh boy, would that be? Again, like you might be talking about the two most talented teams in college baseball there. So, and of course, it's Tony Vitello's old home and all that. I mean, and Arkansas, their recent history has been totally botching it in the postseason with great teams. So that would be to me a fascinating super if it gets to that. But a lot of work to get to that still.
A lot of work to get to that. The path for Tennessee to make it to Omaha certainly is tougher than Vanderbilt, which obviously it should be when you're talking about the number one overall seed in Vanderbilt. I mean, potentially going on the road for a super and taking on Arkansas could be amazing. But like you said, Tennessee has a lot of talent, right? I mean, there's a reason that they were the number one team in college baseball for a significant portion of the year. It fell apart on them at the end of the year. And they actually started swinging the bat well and hitting the ball well in the SEC tournament, obviously until they ran into Vanderbilt. But I'm really, it's like, can they get out of their own regional? That's what that's going to be really interesting to see. That's not a guarantee that they're going to get out of their own regional here.
No, no, not at all. No, and look, obviously a lot of these series losses have been at home, so it's not like it's not like they're unbeatable there. I still love the atmosphere for them,
Oh yeah,
and it'll be great, and it should be a hell. Playing in that park should be. And again, having guys like Hunter Ensley, you got guys who have won it all who are on this team, and I have to think that just like the fresh start does them well. For whatever reason, sometimes it was defensive miscues, just not quite getting that timely hitting. They just they made some mistakes, and they are making some of the same mistakes in some of these losses. Worry a little bit about their defense, but I still think that they have the goods to put it together to really make a run. But you're right. I mean, Wake Forest is dangerous, and Wake, of course, they've also been a team that they were the number one overall seed, 2 years
yep.
ago, and botched it and all that stuff. That's a program that is kind of waiting for an opportunity to maybe flip it around and surprise people and win a regional on the road. So it should be really good.
It should be 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. So is Vanderbilt quote unquote back? Is their baseball program back? Did they ever leave? What do we make of the Vanderbilt program resurgence at the end of the year here? And what does it mean for Tim Corbin and company moving forward here? We'll get into that coming up next. Take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game.
The 0-1. That's swung on. There's a fly ball to center field. Here comes Austin. He's going to call everybody off. He makes the catch. 27 outs. Vandy wins it. The Vandy boys are heroes of Hoover. It's the program's 5th SEC Tournament Championship and the 4th for number 4. It's a mob in center field. Oh, 2025. What a year to be black and gold. Final score on a gorgeous SEC Sunday. It's the Doors 3. It's the Reds 2. Vanderbilt is SEC Tournament Championships 2025.
That was a fired up Andrew Allegretta on the call for Vanderbilt when they win the SEC tournament on Sunday, 3-2 against Ole Miss. So, Joe, it has me asking the question, is Vanderbilt back? Did they ever leave? What do we make of this significance of this accomplishment being the number 1 overall seed heading into the NCAA tournament? Now, Joe, on the one hand, you're talking about a team that was in the College World Series final in 2021. Wasn't that long ago, right? I mean, it's really right. You're talking 4 years. So it really wasn't that long ago. They qualified for 19 straight regionals, which is an SEC record. It's the longest active streak in the country. So on the one hand, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you may be listening and saying, back? What do you mean back? We never went anywhere. On the other hand, Joe, you can look at it and say, well, they've not gotten out of the regional since then in 2021. They have been a team where you look at what else is going on. We've talked about this with the emergence of Tony Vitello and the Tennessee baseball program, who has been unbelievably successful over the last 4 years. You started to look at Vanderbilt and you said, all right, like is Vanderbilt being surpassed by some of these other teams in the SEC? This stat that Arya Gerson from the Tennessean put together, Joe, is amazing. I talked about, 2021, they were in the College World Series final, and they haven't been out of the regional since then. Well, not getting out of the regional since then, Joe, makes them tied for the second longest super regional drought in the SEC. That's incredible. It's 4 years, and they're the second longest super regional drought in the SEC. It's nuts. So what do you make of the conversation around Vanderbilt? Are they back? Did they ever leave? What's the significance of this accomplishment for Tim Corbin and that program?
Yeah, I think if you're a Vanderbilt fan who's sitting there saying, come on, we never left. I think that's a little bit facetious. I think yes, there is a consistency, and it's very impressive when you think about this program and the streak of being in the tournament. No question about that. And look, it's not like they haven't had good teams recently. I mean, 2 years ago, they won the SEC tournament. I don't know if they beat Tennessee during that one. Last year they did, right?
Yes.
But I don't know about 2 years. But regardless, they won the SEC tournament. They were the number 6 overall seed. And then, they lose in the Nashville regional, lose to Xavier. You'll go 1-2 in that thing. So that was a very good team. I think back, Robby, to even postseason last year. I should have tried to find this story, but I went in and did talked to Tim Corbin in his office, and we were talking about, again, what do you talk about with college coaches, especially a program like this, like you could say was as good a college sports program as there was in any sport, when they won it all in 2019 at that point, right? Or in 2021 when, like you said, they get all the way to the final game, lose to Mississippi State. But it was like NIL, the portal, are you hanging in there?
Right.
Down the road, this guy, they just won it all, and they are absolutely loaded. And look at it a year later, pretty amazing, man. So I just think this has been a huge. I mean, it's just been an absolute mic drop year for Tim Corbin, And I seriously, some of my questions, I think about that last year, could you still be seriously? I had a question, something to the effect of could you still be this model program, all the things you love to do, Tim Corbin, the classroom. I mean, look, man, I don't know of another program where the former players are so close to the coach and so involved and so, just thankful for the experience beyond just winning and losing. But it's like, can you still be that and do that and enjoy your job and just maybe you're not fighting for a national championship? It was a question like that. I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but it was something like that. And I remember he kind of looked at me like, "What, dude? No, shut up." He didn't say that, but it was like, no, the hanging in here to continue to be a championship program along with all the other things we do. Again, it's just the next year, but look at they look at what they've done. They don't have the huge, again, right now, like MLB, guys, baseball beating down the door to get some of these players. They have a lot of good players, and they have freshmen. Brody Johnson is the MVP in Hoover. Austin Nye comes out and pitches that game, and Hoover does a great job. Rustin Rigdon has been fantastic. So now they join RJ Austin, who last year was the stud freshman coming in, and they just have all of a sudden a whole bunch of good young players on this team, and they just play like a team. Again, great defensive baseball.
Yeah.
It's such a huge deal. And Jonathan Vastine at short side is this tremendous, player. What does he have? 2 errors this year. They're just such a solid team, and it's such an amazing job of coaching by Corbin and his staff. And the power thing was a huge. That's a thing that I think we probably talked about more than anything. Like, is the game gone so much of the home run, and maybe has Corbin not adjusted enough, things like that? This still isn't like a super, huge home run hitting team, but Johnston, I mentioned, he's got 13, Holcomb, Vastine, they sprinkle in enough power. And the thing is, this year, it's kind of gone to, the SEC tournament, and I think we'll see it in Omaha. I mean, you have to be able to win without just relying on the 3-run homer. And this team certainly does not just rely on that.
Well, I agree with everything you've said. Now, I'll also say, I think there's significant pressure to get out of your regional and to advance now, right? Like, you're the number one overall seed. Like, to me, when you're the number one overall seed, you better get to Omaha, right? Like, that's kind of how I view it. So, we talked about the drought. At the end of the day, the drought is 4 years at this point, which for this program, I guess is a long time. But getting out of your regional, step one. But you're going to have, if you do that, the super regional at home as well. Like, you're the number one overall seed. You need to get to Omaha, because I can hear it now, Joe. I agree with everything you've said. If they screw up now and lose in the regional and they don't get out of their own regional, and Tennessee gets to the super regional, all the Vols fans are going to be like, great, take your SEC tournament championship. We'll see. We're going to go to the super regional, and you guys can watch us at home. There's still significant pressure. It's certainly from the fan base part of it and the sniping back and forth that we've grown to love between Tennessee and Vanderbilt fans in this rivalry of you better get out of the regional if you're Vanderbilt.
Oh, no doubt. Well, think about, so first of all, the hate watching for both sides will be intense. They're going to cheer on their own teams, but the hate watching will be intense. Look, Vanderbilt fans, man, I should go back and find the comments on, when Tennessee was the number one seed and they were the absolute dominant team in 2022, right? Vanderbilt, is on the road to the regionals. They lose in the finals. Oregon State, they're out. They just have to sit there and just hope Tennessee blows it. Tennessee blows it.
Yep.
I remember I wrote a comment that was like, just keep doing what you're doing, Vols, it'll be fine. Because everybody hated them and said, oh, it's their lack of sportsmanship and all this stuff. And the Vanderbilt fans were so mad about the idea that this was anything but proof that their brash style isn't going to work. So that hate watching was great for Vanderbilt fans. And then the next year, like I said earlier, Vanderbilt's the number 6 overall seed. They lose in the regional. Tennessee goes on the road and they incredible win at Clemson, and they go win at Southern Miss and the super regional there, and they get to Omaha, and it's like, oh my God, this was supposed to be the other way around, So and then of course last year Vanderbilt fans have to watch them win the whole thing, and Tennessee fans are absolutely ready for Vanderbilt to not advance, not make it. Yeah, this is, you have to follow this up by at least getting to Omaha. You get to Omaha, and then to me, you have officially said, yes, this program is absolutely back among the elite programs in the sport, but you do have to do that.
Yep, no doubt about it. Let's head to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Mike and Gallatin to the program. Mike, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, guys. Good morning. So as a Vanderbilt fan who's had 6 season tickets to, well, all the sports, but mainly baseball and football for the last decade, on the baseball side, I don't know if they really ever left. I just think that there's been some the other teams have arrived. And like we talked about, that there's been the recruiting and NIL changed things differently. But over the last 3 to 4 years, for sure, that what we watched program-wise, there was injuries that over the last few years kind of plagued the starting lineup for sure last year. A lot of our big power bats that we said we were going to have got hurt. We've had a top 5, top 10 recruiting class every single year for as long as I can recall. And a lot of those guys, some of those guys forgoed attending and went straight to the draft. So again, it's just one of those things that I don't know if we really ever left. I just think it was almost more that everybody else kind of arrived. And it's just nice to see another team that is as complete as this one can be, because I think the pitching is what should be able to carry Vanderbilt further. I think we have 3 or 4 starters and then the relievers to hold the fort down to play a long series. Whereas I saw in the SEC tournament, it almost kind of looked like that we got lucky with some of the draws that we got gassed pitching staff to some extent, being able to throw out our second or third starter versus their third or fourth was a good way to kind of play those matchups and a reward that we deserve. So I was really excited for the Vandy boys, hoping that we can continue this streak. But man, this is what makes this college sport very fun, because anything can happen.
Yep, no doubt about that. Mike, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it. Joe, I mean, Tim Corbin, right? He's always about kind of the next game and the next challenge, and certainly now that the postseason is here, that's where his mind is. But I have to think that somewhere deep down in there, the competitor that he is, Joe, that this is a pretty sweet moment for him, because he heard all the noise. There was a lot of talk about, has the game passed Tim Corbin by? Is he going to be able to actually compete in the NIL era and all this stuff? And to come out and get the number 1 overall seed, it's got to be on some level for him pretty gratifying.
I would think so. Although also knowing him, it's like I just say it's like, just okay. So today, what are we doing?
Right.
Wake up, and this is he's so process oriented that I hope so. I hope he's taking a minute to be like, that's right, MFers, okay. But also he knows, just like you said, Robby, that that this is where you build legacies. This is the time of the year where the pressure's so high and it's so easy to be bounced and come up short. But yeah, this has got to be a somewhat gratifying year for him, I would think. And yes, the Game Pass, but again, I think that's a lot about not building teams. Like Tennessee obviously has built a team for that ballpark too, right?
Right.
Lots of power over the years, and maybe not having enough power. But like the caller said, he has had some who got hurt, who went to the bigs, et cetera, et cetera. And you got Johnston in here this year, and you can see it. That's a big kid who is going to hit a lot of home runs for Vanderbilt.
615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll take more of your thoughts on Vanderbilt, their run to being the number 1 overall seed heading into the NCAA tournament. More of your thoughts to get to on that. Plus a story in college sports that we really need to get Rexrode's thoughts on from last week as well, and how that could change the way that college sports operate. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning, taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, Zakai Ziegler, while you were gone last week, suing the NCAA for a fifth year of eligibility. Says the 5-year eligibility window where you get 4 seasons is, quote, an unlawful restraint of trade under federal and state antitrust law. So, Joe, it's not necessarily a surprise that this has happened. We've talked about this, that this was going to come from somebody at some point, and Zakai Ziegler is the person. Now, we talked last week with Kuharski. Diego Pavia did this and got another year of eligibility at Vanderbilt. His was a different situation coming from junior college, so it's not exactly apples to apples here. But Ziegler has done this. We'll see what this ultimately ends up looking like and how this shakes out. But what do you make of his lawsuit against the NCAA? And if it goes through and he's awarded a 5th year of eligibility at the end of all this, what does that do for college sports in your mind?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I'm not surprised it happened. There was a little bit of chatter about this around the Vols during the NCAA tournament, but it was almost joking, like, hey, man, you sue them, and give it a shot. But it makes sense to give it a shot. My initial thought was, this one, like you said, Diego Pavia, there's a different situation. The other cases that have worked in terms of eligibility, it's been because of, again, like, why does JUCO count? There's been some other situations too where there were different circumstances. This is the first class after COVID. So it's the first class that doesn't automatically get that 5th year. And the thing is, Robby, what's going to happen is they are going to get to the point where you're going to have 5 to play 5.
Yep.
I'm confident in that. So I get the question is there going to be this window of these athletes kind of getting squeezed where they didn't get the COVID year and they're not going to get the benefit of that, and they're just going to be kind of SOL and have the 4 years like it has always been? Or are they just going to end up making it, from COVID on, it's 5 to play 5? I don't know. My initial thought was, it's worth a shot. I doubt he wins it. I reached out to Mitt Winter. He's a guy who's very active on X, but also, he's a college sports lawyer, and he thinks it's 50-50. So
wow.
I'm like, okay, 50-50 sounds pretty, potentially promising for Ziegler. So I guess I'm just not going to be surprised either way. You can definitely make the case, like, why does this class, why do these guys, especially once we get to the point where they get to 5 to play 5, why do these people here in the middle get hosed? And especially, you talk about restraining trade. That's what it all is. Why you're denying people the right to earn. And according to the lawsuit, Ziegler could have made about $4 million, or could make about $4 million this year, potentially. I think, if I'm recalling, I don't have it up right now, but did it say he made $500K last year? Is that right?
I believe that's what it says.
Which I was like, man, that seems, I'm stunned that it was that low. I mean, he kind of got hosed last year, if that's the case. Like, you would think that the way things are, an all SEC record-breaking, all-time great defensive player point guard makes more than $1 million in college sports today. So I would look at
I'm seeing 500.
Sports.
Yeah.
That's he got screwed. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry, but like, Zakai Ziegler last year should have made absolutely 7 figures. When you considering the other numbers that I've heard thrown around, and what some guys made last year, multiple millions of dollars for some players. I mean, he's not like a 20-point game first round pick, but that's ridiculous. And so, but again, that doesn't necessarily impact like the outcome of the lawsuit, but it's just really surprising. I'm also wondering why you're going, according to his lawyers, why are you going to $4 million this year then, if that's the case? I mean, certainly you should be in the 7 figures, but I don't totally understand the idea of that jump. They did make the point in the lawsuit, if you look at historically, is that last year is by far the most lucrative. Yep. I think in a lot of cases it's because players get better, and or sometimes because a player moves. That's why you see a lot of these, 1-year moves for some of these players, just because they get paid a ton. I mean, some of these guys who went to Kansas State and they just got the kid from Haggerty from Memphis. I know Kansas State has been throwing money around, and so it's like any job situation out there. It's like if you're willing to move, that's a lot of times how you make money is because you're willing to go here, and it's just like free agency in pro sports, right? You're going to get overpaid, but it's going to be fascinating, and I my initial thought of worth a shot, but probably not. I'm keep an open mind on any lawsuit, man, that involves the NCAA. Keep an open mind.
They don't have a great track record recently. Well, the idea of 5 to play 5. So you got 5 years to play 5 seasons here. I'm really interested to see how people react to that because I'm with you. It's probably coming at some point here. And I don't think for like your bona fide stud first, second round picks and like the NFL or in college basketball, if you know that you're going to be a high first round pick, it's probably not changing the equation all that much in terms of how long you're staying there.
No.
But Ziegler's kind of like the perfect example, right? Of a guy that is probably not going to be an NBA player. I mean, he didn't even get invited to the pre-draft NBA stuff this year. And who knows, he may go on, whether it's now or even after another year of college basketball, to play professional ball overseas or something like that. But he's probably not going to be an NBA player. So, like, he's kind of like the perfect example of a guy that's a really, really good college player that probably doesn't have a future in the NBA. And, like, those type of guys having that 5th year could be very lucrative for them at the end of the year, or at the end of the day.
Yeah, and look, the case the lawyers have made and others have made too is I know some people are going to, have a problem with five years of eligibility and all that. But when you look at average amount of time it takes for people to get a degree, that lines up with 5 years. Okay. Now Ziegler has his degree. He would be going toward a graduate degree, take graduate classes. But I mean that's not crazy, to me. And also when you talk about college sports, all the movement, all that stuff, I do think players like him, they are the good side of that, which is, I mean, you do have some of these guys who are going to stay around. And if you have that extra year, again, fan attachment to players, continuity and things like that. I mean, that is, I think that's a positive for the sport to have guys like that. Pavia is another example. Pavia is not going to be an NFL quarterback. Ziegler's not going to be an NBA point guard, but my God, are they great college players and they're beloved by the fans.
Well, let me ask you this real quickly, Joe. Number one, let's say he gets through and he gets another year of eligibility. Is he 100% back at Tennessee, or does he shop around a little bit? And if he is back at Tennessee, how good are they going to be next year?
No, that's absolutely that's the thing too. Is that he could end up maximizing. He could go out there on the market and someone could go. It's hard for me to believe that he's not going to come back with Rick Barnes. I think their relationship is 100% real, and there's so much appreciation. And I mean, again, Rick Barnes, found him early. Now he would have been found eventually, but Rick Barnes found him and gave him a chance. So I think he would be back at Tennessee. But you know what? It makes sense to be out there. And like Gunner on the text line's like, well, Vols couldn't afford it. All that money was going to Nico. I mean, maybe there is a little bit of truth to, sorry guys, like football's got to have X amount. So like you guys have got to pay. Well, if Ziegler does get this, Tennessee better ante up here, man. I mean, like you, this is like a lifetime achievement award. I mean, all that kid did for the program, he better make a few million next year. And again, like you said, I mean, you're not making that in Europe,
No.
And that's what his alternative is. And I'm sure he'll play pro ball for a while whenever he's done. But like, it's just it's life money that he has a chance to make here.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. A lot of Titans fans looking around all the time and wondering, like, hey, where's the love for the Titans? Where's the love for Cam Ward? Well, boy, did we find some over the weekend. We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. We will have Gentry Estes from the Tennessean joining us at 8 o'clock. We'll get back into the Vanderbilt and Tennessee regional discussion with him going up at 8 o'clock here on the show. So looking forward to that. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025 Rexrode. Speaking of baseball, a nice slide into the chair there to get back in for this segment.
Yeah, a little bit out of breath. Sorry. That's my morning workout. I mean, look, it's one of those things. I had to wait for my big Starbucks here, no free ads, but it's the Sandestin Starbucks, Sandestin Courtyard Starbucks. But it was like, there's a line. I'm like, man, if I don't get this, then I can probably try again at the top of the hour, the next hour. But I think I have to hang in here and give it a shot. So
you nailed it.
Took the stairs, didn't do the elevator, went stairs instead, got it done.
Very nicely done. Have you
run into my stevia in there?
You run into your boy Sankey yet down there? Is he threatened to beat you up yet?
I have not run into Sankey, but I will. I certainly will. So he's already a little bit fired up. I can see.
I could see that.
A little bit fired up. Man.
We're gonna get into that later this hour on the Greg Sankey front. Titans fans, look, we all know this. It's been a rough couple of years for the Titans. There's some new hope in Cam Ward, but even that draft night, Cam Ward gets drafted, and they immediately start talking about Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, and Mel Kiper screaming for 2 days about Shedeur Sanders on the draft. So it's like, hey, where's the love for Cam Ward? Where's the love for the Tennessee Titans? And boy, did we find some this weekend with Colin Cowherd, of all people, throwing it out there that, boy, does he have high expectations for Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans. Here's what Colin Cowherd had to say on his program.
There's 4 people, and only 4 in my opinion, that will change outcomes. Number 1 is Cam Ward, Tennessee. They were so hard to watch offensively, where even games they outplayed teams, Tennessee was so bad at quarterback with Will Levis. They lost games where they out-physicaled, out-schemed, and outplayed teams. Cam Ward is accurate, moves, coachable. I mean, Miami's had some good quarterbacks. He broke all the Miami records. There's a history of this league when guys come in without a lot of stars and without a lot of pats on the back. Nobody's pandering to them. That's jet fuel. So I think Cam Ward changes outcomes. I think Tennessee's going to be a playoff team.
So you heard it there from Colin Cowherd. Cam Ward changes outcomes, and he says he believes that the Tennessee Titans are a playoff team this year, Joe Rex. So your thoughts on Colin Cowherd's very optimistic take on Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, there's a lot there to unpack, including all the times they outplayed, out-physical, and out-schemed teams last year. I guess I missed those. Yeah, I missed those games. But, yeah. So here's the thing with Colin Cowherd. I have to admit, I don't listen to him. And usually, the only times I ever see clips of Colin Cowherd or hear clips is when he says something stupid. I'm sure that's not all he does, right? I mean,
I'm sure.
He's obviously a very talented guy, a huge audience. He's done very well. So I'm sure he has a lot of good takes. I just only see the bad takes. And my God, does he have some doozies. Oh, so I think it's interesting what he said about the QBs who, early in their career, they don't have all the accolades. And he said there's a history in the NFL. Now I need to get into that a little bit. The obvious coming into the league guy who didn't have the accolades, who did great, was Tom Brady.
Yep.
We now have Brock Purdy here as Mr. Irrelevant getting a huge deal. So there's another example. I mean, Cam Ward's a different deal. He's the guy coming into college,
right,
who didn't have it, who built his way. Do we have other examples? I mean, I suppose when you have a guy like Josh Allen or Jordan Love, I suppose there's examples of guys who over the course of college and even, in early in their years in the NFL, they got way, way better, right?
Right.
But I guess I've come up with a couple. My initial thought was, is there really a big history of that? I mean, most quarterbacks in this league who are successful were certainly big recruits, and most of them were also high picks. Kirk Cousins is another example, by the way, of a guy who was not a big recruit and was a 4th-round pick. So I keep talking myself into more examples. So maybe he's got more of a point than I initially thought.
The Josh Allen one's a good one because I think both Ward and Josh Allen were 0-star recruits, right? So, Allen was a 0-star recruit, ended up at Wyoming, and he ends up obviously being a great player in the NFL. So, if you're looking for, I guess, the path, that one is similar. Like Josh Allen didn't bounce around all over the place in college, but not being very highly recruited at all to then being an NFL superstar. Cam Ward's got a long way to go before he even enters into the same discussion as Josh Allen, but the 0-star recruiting background developing into a high-profile NFL prospect is very similar.
Yeah, look, and I definitely buy into why that could be good. If you start an incarnate word and you have to work your way up and you go, I don't think there's any question. That's just great experience as opposed to someone who is told they're amazing all along. Sometimes those guys are amazing, and so it doesn't matter. They're like, here, I'm going to show you. You're right. I am amazing. But I do think that there's benefit to the path Cam Ward took. It's a very unique path. So, and I think that has, you can see how that's probably not just benefited him as a player and everything, but also I think his approach is probably informed by that. But also, there's a lot with him in terms of the intangibles, including on draft night, like the Titans talked about, his family and everything, his parents, military parents who pushed him, but they were good sports parents, examples of good sports parents. So there's a lot there's a lot to like about him. I don't think that Colin Cowherd is going to be joined by too many people also picking the Titans to make the playoffs.
I don't think he is either, but he's done it. And if you're a Titans fan looking for some love nationally, you got some of that over the weekend. What do you make of Colin Cowherd throwing it out there that Cam Ward loves everything about him? The Titans are a playoff team this year. We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The PFL World Championship semifinals coming up on Thursday, June the 12th at Municipal Auditorium. And you could be there. Text in the keyword match to 615-737-1025. Again, that's match to 615-737-1025. To be entered to win a pair of VIP ringside tickets, visit pflmma.com/schedule for more details. This is Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Things you're looking for in phase 3, Coach?
Yeah, you get a chance to actually, see guys work and compete. Everything so far in phase 2 is very individual centered as far as position groups, and it's unit centered. So you're doing a lot of things with unit, but you're not going up against anybody else. So you get a chance to actually guys compete a little bit. No pads on or anything like that, but get a chance to see now the schemes, guys picking up things in real time and real speed and execution against an actual defense and an offense and in special teams. So that's the part that's your next step. So it's very teaching focused here in phase 2. A lot of things schematically you're trying to get better at, working on a lot of technique and fundamentals. And then you get into phase 3, you get a chance to see a little bit more application of those things you're working on. So excited about that. It's a good fit part of the off season. Last ramp up before training camp, really, when you're actually going against each other.
That was Brian Callahan last week discussing phase 3 of the offseason coming up for the Tennessee Titans. Training camp right around the corner. Take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Colin Cowherd throwing it out over the weekend that he thinks the Titans are a playoff team. One texter, Joe, Texas J, says, I'll take any positivity for the Titans from the national media. I don't care how small it is, LOL. Mark from Ashland City says, my guess is he saw the Bears game and the Jets game last year and then stopped paying any attention to them. That's all I could think of to make that statement. This is from Mark from Ashland City, I guess talking about the out scheming and out physicaling teams.
Yeah, I was going to say last segment, I mean, if you watch the opener, then, the Titans for a lot of that game looked good. And at the time, I don't know that I necessarily bought this, but I think a lot of people thought the Bears were going to be at least. I think a lot of people picked the Bears to make playoffs last year, right? Am I wrong?
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
it's
a lot
an
of people
annual tradition.
Yes. So that looked more impressive in the moment, handling the Bears, and then of course they blew it. But that's definitely an example of a game that you did a lot of good things, and your quarterback had the surrender cobra moment, and of course the miracle flip, and then of course your special teams also completely blew it. But yeah, let's be honest here. Colin Cowherd watched how many minutes of Titans football last year?
Not very many. I mean, I think now, granted, I don't blame him for not watching very minutes of Titans football last year. Like, the Titans got to give you a reason to watch at some point. So, like, I think a lot of what he said in that clip that we played is just kind of throwing stuff against the wall. I am looking at the FanDuel Sportsbook odds here, Joe. The Titans are plus 470 to make the playoffs, according to FanDuel Sportsbooks. There are 4 teams in the NFL, not the AFC, the NFL, that have worse odds than the Tennessee Titans to make the playoffs. Those 4 teams are the Jets, the Saints, the Browns, and at the bottom of the list, the New York Giants at plus 920 to make the playoffs.
Boy, New York football, I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful thing. Look, the Cam Ward, we've already talked about could this be the Texans of 2 years ago, the Commanders of 1 year ago? I mean, if Cam Ward is special right away, if he comes out, it's like, oh my goodness. Yes, this clearly was the number 1 pick, and he's a legit number 1 pick kind of guy. Hey, it's possible. I still have questions about a lot of other aspects of the team, but he'd have to be quite special for this team to actually make the playoffs.
He would have to be, very special. I mean, the one thing I will say about, and again, I don't think the Titans are a playoff team or really, frankly, anywhere close to being a playoff team. But the one thing I will say that I think works to their advantage in this discussion, if Cam Ward comes in and is great and is really good, like they play in the AFC South, so that helps, right? Like when you're playing in a division that is as bad as this one looks like it could be, when you're factoring in Jacksonville and the tire fire in Indianapolis with their quarterback competition of, is it going to be Daniel Jones? Is it going to be Anthony Richardson? And like even Houston, like I look at Houston, and basically my thought on Houston right now, we talked about this last week, Joe, is they're the best of the bunch. Are they probably significantly better than the Titans, the Jags, and the Colts? Yeah, but I don't view Houston as Buffalo or Baltimore or Kansas City or anything like that. So like the one thing I would say, like for the playoff part of this, is if Cam Ward is great which is a huge if, at least they play in the AFC South, and that gives you a better chance than some of these other divisions.
Right. Now, the Titans being relevant, being hanging around, being, playing a game in early December that matters.
Right.
I think that's possible. I think that's feasible. But actually getting there, I mean, I guess if they get to the end of the schedule and they're still around, then the end of the schedule is beneficial. But again, that's why I think it's going to be real hard for them to stay relevant all year. But look, Cam Ward, I mean, if he is what some people believe he is, then I think they're going to win more games, and they're going to be a lot more interesting to watch. And the second part of that, especially, has got to be just something that Titans fans have been desperate for. Just a team that's worth watching, even if you feel like, the defense is going to give up 30, so it doesn't matter. If your quarterback's fun to watch and you feel like you have a future with him, then that changes the math tremendously.
Joe, a lot of discussion last week about some comments that Brian Callahan had as it relates to kind of the offseason changes, the emphasis on kind of developing leadership. He went into pretty heavy detail about that last week. They're doing a lot of different things this offseason. He said he needed to make some changes. They're focusing in on trying to be more competitive, and he talked about splitting, his team up into different teams and developing leaders that way. And we had a pretty heavy discussion with Kuharski about that last week. A lot of Titans fans look at it and say, well, this guy's an absolute joke. He has no idea what he's doing at the NFL level. To which, I mean, I understand it. He's, until further notice, Joe, he's a 3-14 head coach. So you're going to get some of that naturally when it comes to that. My position on it was, look, I'm still not convinced that Brian Callahan is going to be a good coach. I do like that he's trying new things, right? Like we talk about growing from year one to year two, and how he and his coaching staff are going to have to take a big step. So, how often have we run across the coach that just does things their way and is very rigid, and this is the way I do things, and I'm not changing for anybody? Well, Brian Callahan doesn't appear to be that. I don't know if it's going to work out for him, but where do you come down on kind of the discussion right now of Brian Callahan, some of the off-season things he's put in place, and the reaction from some Titans fans last week, which was basically, yeah, this guy's a clown.
Yeah, I think sometimes fans are going to say that no matter what he does. I'm with you. It's worth a shot. I'm not like all excited about this, but I think it probably does speak to the lack of leadership. I think it speaks to, and I'm sure to me, it tells me that in his mind, part of the problem last year was that.
Yes.
So the top two leaders on last year's team that, like, just on paper, one of them tried to rough up poor little Andrew in front of a bunch of autograph-seeking kids because of some stupid tweet. And then the other one, was not good. And so how do you lead if you're a quarterback who everybody's, you're struggling mightily in front of everyone. So then you look elsewhere. I mean, like Calvin Ridley, it's just, I don't think that that's his deal at all. And some other guys that some of their veterans. So they had a void, and it's coming right off Henry, Tannehill, Byard, great leaders, along with, again, a head coach in Vrabel, who also, I think, was obviously more established and probably had some stuff in place that obviously went away when he went away. I think it's worth a shot. And maybe, I mean, they do need to develop leadership. I also, again, it's like, can you be good?
Right.
Can you do your job well as a coach and give your team a chance to win games and then actually finish those games? I understand, like, right now it's the off season, so you're trying to cultivate leadership. It's worth a shot. It's going to come down to me to, can you be a good football team? And I think it's more like chemistry and leadership and things like that. It's a lot easier if you are competent, and you can win matchups and you can win games. But clearly they need to find people. And I just, again, Snead, like some of these guys they brought in who are good players, Snead, Ridley, I don't think really fit the bill. They need to find some of these young guys who, And I think a guy they lost in NWI was an ultimate lead by example guy, and he's gone. And Landry, I mean, Landry was a lead by example guy too. Who are the vocal guys who are, going to be leaders of this team?
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up later this hour at 7:45. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean will be with us at 8. We'll get into the regionals for Vanderbilt and Tennessee with him, so looking forward to that discussion. Joe is down where the SEC is having their meetings, trying to determine the future of what their conference is going to look like. We'll get into some of that with Joe coming up next. Also, I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to see Incubus performing Morning View in its entirety, plus the hits with special guest Manchester Orchestra and Paris Jackson coming up at Bridgestone Arena on Wednesday, June the 25th. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. You can win tickets to that concert coming up at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Wednesday, June the 25th. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up here in just a few minutes. Joe is down in Florida where the SEC spring meetings are underway. And Greg Sankey, Joe, already spouting off and going after some other leaders in college football, saying, quote, I don't need lectures from others about the good of the game. And we all know that he's probably referring to the ACC and Big 12 part of this that have been taking shots at the SEC and the Big 10 about potential college football playoff expansion. They keep bringing up, quote, the best interest of the sport is the line that they keep using, and about how they've got it. And potentially the SEC and the Big 10 maybe don't have the best interest of the sport in mind. Joe, it looks like we're on the verge of a 16-team college football playoff that's going to include probably higher levels of access for the SEC and the Big 10 coming up. We'll see how that all ends up shaking out. But what do you make of Greg Sankey's comments to this point? What are you most interested in at the SEC spring meetings that are now underway?
Yeah, Sankey took umbrage, and it was my cohort and friend of the show, Ralph Russo, asking him the question about basically, you know, he mentioned those comments that you just mentioned, but also like, would you, how do you balance the good of the game versus what's best for the SEC? And Sankey, you could see the smoke coming out of his ears. So both of those guys, Phillips and Yormark, ACC Big 12, they both said those comments in regard to the straight seeding change, which is a good change. We can all agree. I think we can all agree. I know you and I agree. The straight seeding change is a good move out of the 12, and so now it's not just conference championships. So like a lesser team. Well, last year the bracket was kind of jacked up.
So
yeah. So because of that, now that does hurt them, right? Like last year, it helped them to have the seeding the way it was, and it will now hurt them in theory, or it would have hurt them last year. So, and I think that, moving forward, there's going to be some years where had you had the higher seed for the automatic champs, the ACC teams were probably seeded higher, Big 12, et cetera, et cetera. So that their point was, for the good of the game, we're doing this. Good. I don't have a problem with that. And yes, I do think it's a little bit of a comment toward the SEC and the Big 10. But let's make it clear who the bad guy is here, okay? The bad guy here is Tony Petitti, the Big 10 commissioner, who is the one pushing this auto bid thing. For those who don't know, quickly, what the Big 10 wants, and what unfortunately right now the SEC has not yet rejected, like the Dikembe Mutombo, just throwing somebody's wheat crap and then shaking the finger, which is what they should do. The Big 10 wants 4 automatic bids for the SEC, 4 automatic bids for the Big 10, 2 for the ACC, 2 for the Big 12. Then you have a group of 5, and then you have 3 out of it. First of all, I hate going to 16. I don't think we need to. I like the 12. I don't see why we can't just stick with the 12 and see how that goes for a little bit, but we got to change it. Also, separate from this, Robby, have you seen like the 16 plan is not just like one plays 16. It's like, you have all these buys and you have the early plan. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. But if you do the auto bids thing, we've already talked about it. Talk about it again. Like, you are saying that this sport is pro wrestling. I mean, again, it would be like Jerry Jones telling people, well, we're the Dallas Cowboys. We bring in more money than any of you other suckers. I get a playoff bid every year. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's seriously what you're doing. You're saying because these leagues have the prestige, more money, they should just automatically get more power. They also, there's a memo, it's the Big 10, and this is Ross Dellinger from Yahoo reporting, where like essentially the Big 10 and SEC are going to be dictating the playoff. It just can't. This auto bid thing cannot happen. And of course, it also means, Robby, these play-in games, which I find to be just
repulsive,
offensively stupid. So in other words, the play-in games, for people who don't know, that's your 3 and your 6 and your 4 and your 5. Instead of a championship game on those weekends, you have the 3 and the 6 and the 4 and the 5 played. So this is only for the Big Ten and SEC, by the way, right? Because they get the 4 auto bids. So then the 3 and 6, 4 and 5 play each other that weekend to see who gets the auto bids. It's just it's offensively stupid, and it hurts my head to even talk through this stuff. It's already disfigured. It's going to be disfigured to some point, but you can't do the auto bid thing. And what the SEC is doing is they're saying basically through back channels, well, we'll go to 9 games if you do the auto bid thing, because now we don't worry so much about losing a big non-league game. We'll go to or bigger game. We'll go to 9 games. So what do you think? More good inventory, more money. I hate it. Forget that, man. The SEC benefits from not having the auto bids, in my opinion. They will have more teams. The Big Ten is the league with a bunch of crappy teams that will benefit from the auto bids, and they want it, and they should not get their way.
Here's what we all know that the SEC and the Big Ten are the money drivers, right? Like, nobody's arguing against that. So, like, I understand the financial part of it from that point of view, but also, like, the way that it's played out, and I think the way that it's going to play out to an even higher degree moving forward, is like they're not going to need auto bids. They're going to get it. They're going to get plenty of teams. If you go to 16-team playoffs, they're going to get plenty of teams that are represented from the SEC and the Big Ten in those playoffs every single year. And frankly, like, if somebody was pushing for auto bids, I'd probably be like, if I'm the ACC or the Big 12, I'd be the one pushing for it, saying, hey, give me 2, like, give me 3, like, because we may not actually get that most years with how the money's going with these teams.
Yeah.
Now, I think auto bids are stupid in general. Like, I just see the best. If you're going to expand to 16, I hate that. We've talked about that, but they're going there. Like, it's going to 16 at some point. So if you're going to do that, just seat it straight up and go. Like, that's the way that I would do it. Last week, Joe, I talked about Matt Rule, and Matt Rule got a lot of crap for like one part of his comments last week where he was joking about expanding the college football playoff to 40. And a lot of people react to that. If you actually watch the clip, like, he was kind of laughing when he said that. But one thing he said later, which I think represents a lot of how these Big Ten teams feel, he said later, basically, if you play in the Big Ten, you deserve a chance to play in the postseason, is what he said. It's like, if you play in this conference, you deserve a chance to be in the playoff. And it's like, do we not have any competitive fire at all anymore? Like, is no one competitive in this thing, or do you just want the easiest route possible because you know that you're the ones making the money?
Exactly. It's absurd. Now, listen, I've talked to ADs in the Big Ten and the SEC, and I think a lot of ADs across both leagues would say the same general thing, which is, yeah, it is so contrary to the idea of competition. However, when I look at the finances moving forward and all the things that are happening and the desperate search for money and paying the player, sharing the revenue, if I know that we have that money every year, 4 bids every year, and I can count on that in my budget, that is valuable. And I understand that. But the SEC is going to, like you just said, so what's going to happen if you don't do the auto bids, which you can't. And if you don't, so the SEC will have some years, they'll have like 6 teams. The Big Ten will have like 3. That's the reality for the Big Ten. And again, that's why the Big Ten wants this. They don't deserve it. And it's stupid anyway. But it's so much about this for the ADs is just about the finances, knowing that you can count on that money for sure every year. And I'm with you, Robbie. I think you could look at the Big 12 and ACC and say, man, and that's what they're trying to sell them is, if you're getting 2, because there's going to be some years you might just get 1.
Yeah.
But what about the year, though, when Dabo has a great team? What if Belichick does get it going at North Carolina? You could see a particular year where the ACC has 3 or 4 really good freaking teams. And so we're going to screw that so that freaking Illinois can get in. Minnesota. Just go away. It's absurd. And I hope that sanity prevails. And look, Sankey has made it clear last night. Yeah, he's going to keep saying it. Like, he works for the ADs, guys. He's not just here with full autonomy in one person. But I would also still call him the most powerful person in college sports. And it's time for you to talk some ADs into some stuff too. Then, I mean, he mentioned last night some ADs have said to him, "We've already given away too much." He made the point 4 would have been fine for the SEC. I mean, they're still dominating a 14 player. But the thing is, it's disingenuous too because there's still more money in the 12, right, for everybody. But this is a big moment for the SEC to tell the Big Ten to shut the hell up. And no, we're not doing your auto bid crap, and we're going to be just fine. You deal with it.
Oh, it's been interesting. Like, Josh Pate has talked about this from CBS Sports about, basically he doesn't like a lot of things that have gone on in college sports, but like does Saturday feel any different, right? Like when the games actually come around, does Saturday feel any different? And I would say, Joe, for the most part, the answer is probably no to this point. I do wonder how long that lasts. Like we're still pretty early into all this new stuff, whether it's NIL or conference expansion. We're still pretty early into it. So I would say no, it doesn't feel that different yet. I wonder if, 5 years down the road, we look at this and we just don't recognize the sport that we're watching out there.
Yeah, look, it's fair, and I'll raise my hand. I mean, I wanted expansion from 4. We argued about it a lot, but I just want it because for whatever reason, 4 seemed to just make the entire focus the playoff. And so then it's like, well, if that's the case, then you have to have more access. But I hate the 16 thing. I hate this plan of like 16 teams, but we're not doing just a straight bracket. We're doing, double buys and all that. And then you think about putting it in with the NFL games and everything. But to your point, will the sport feel different? I feel like regular season games against rivals and big games will still feel the same. But like, also, what about this idea of these playing games? I mean, it's so gimmicky and just Tony Petitti is an MLB Network guy in charge of the Big Ten, and my God, is it showing right now?
Yep, no doubt. 615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean will be with us at 8. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Trust in myself and my mullet. So it's a process. You can't grow a great mullet in a day. You can't win a Big Ten title in a day.
But I think you severely underrate Bush. The best of Bush is very good.
He's a habitual line stepper.
I smoke weed constantly.
We had a love fest. We all kind of gathered around. We hugged each other.
That's illegal, and I'm calling the feds in to shut this down.
It's always my annual trip to the beach where I actually never experienced the beach.
It is that time of the day, the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. He's back at it on the program this morning. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, look, I have to admit I'm not always the most frugal person. I was a guy who go back to when I had no money, get a paycheck, go to the store to get a pack of gum, and it's like, ooh, Radiohead's on the cover of Rolling Stone. That's only $6. And then, oh, supersized Reese's cup, or you go to the amusement park and it's like, oh, God, all right, let's get the fast pass. I know it's expensive, but like it's worth it. This is a thing. This is a running theme for me, okay? Like I spend sometimes when I shouldn't spend. All right, so let me tell you about last week. One of the craziest weeks the Rexrode family's ever encountered. So I had to be in New York for athletic meetings. By the way, I spent some money in New York. Meanwhile, young Brennan, he's flying to Elkhart, Indiana with the Raptor Rugby Club Nationals in Elkhart, Indiana. We won big on Thursday morning. So he flies up Wednesday. We win big on Thursday. A few of them jumped on a private plane back. Shout out to our guy, Ty. Graduated, flew back on the plane the next morning. Okay. Then Katie and I start driving to Elkhart. Okay. We lost in the semifinals. Then third place, we win Saturday. Then the three of us are driving back home from Indiana to Nashville on Sunday so I could get ready for this trip to Florida on Monday. So in the middle of all that, we had some nice dinners. Like Katie and I had a nice one, a little creme brulee, a little chocolate mousse, right? Went out with some of the parents. Yes, we'll get that second basket of cheese nugs to go with the fried pickles and the bacon cheeseburgers and the Bell's Opera. Okay. So for all that spending, when it comes to gas, I'm an absolute frugal McDougal, okay? But I mean, if your gas station, why is this? I don't know. If your gas station across the street is 3 cents cheaper than the one I'm at right now, I'm getting in the car, I'm coming over to you, and I'm going to save like 45 cents on the full tank, right? But then I'm going to also like buy up some beef jerky and black licorice and like the soy and wasabi almonds. But by golly, I saved 45 cents on the full tank of gas. Yay. So we're in Kentucky. I'm sorry, we're in Indiana. And I'm like, and the gas is way more expensive in the Midwest for anybody who goes up there. Like it's a big difference. So I'm like, okay, Kentucky gas is cheaper than Indiana gas. We're going to fill up when we cross the border into Kentucky. Okay. So we're a few miles north of Louisville. And the light goes on in the car, 44 miles left. Why 44? I don't know. There's a rental car that also has a window crack in it and it has a leaking tire.
Oh, good.
44 miles. Okay, 44 miles left. All right, fine. We're okay. I mean, it's a couple of miles to the bridge, and then we get into Kentucky. I look up. We pass a gas station at $2.99. $2.99? $2.99 is not bad, but I bet you it's better in Kentucky, right? So we get through Louisville proper, and then I keep looking for an exit. And then there's like one, but it's like you have to get on a different highway. I'm like, okay, no, we don't need to do that. And then the car goes from showing the mileage left to just low. It just says low. Like it doesn't show me like at this point. I mean, to me, I had about 20 left probably.
Okay.
We'd probably gone about 20. Okay, but 20 miles left, something like that. No, it just says low. And then we're in a rural area. And then I turn to Kate. I'm like, we're getting low. Like we got to get a gas station soon. And then just an absolute idiot. Just an absolute idiot. And long story short, because like I could, I don't want to bore everybody more than I already have. Pull over the side. I mean, it's just incredible. And so, like, obviously they're furious at me, and they should be. I'm furious at myself. And then Katie's like, well, when we call AAA, and I'm like, well, what? Like, I'm not going to, like, there was a sign.
Can you bring me some gas? AAA.
Well, that's the thing. I'm like, well, they don't do that. But apparently they do that. I don't know. But anyway, we had just passed a sign for like an exit. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go walk up there, get a gas can. And, I'm sorry, this sucks. I blew it. And I just I just needed to walk anyway, like just so mad at myself, like walk up the highway, And then I realized, like, it's like, one of those things where, there's a sign, the exit coming up. And then after a while, I get to another sign and it's like, exit 1 mile. I'm like, oh my God, man. I'm drenched in sweat. And I have another mile to go. So I'm like angry fast walking for another mile to get to this gas station. I go in. Do you have gas cans? No. Oh my God. So I walk to, you have to like cross super busy street to go to this other one. Meanwhile, at this point, Katie has called AAA and they're like, yeah, actually, we do bring you gas. I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait for you guys then. And then they come, but they didn't bring gas. So they just had to tow them the 1.5 miles to the gas station. And I'm a complete all-time loser.
Jeez.
That's my story. But the point is, like if it's fine to try to get cheaper gas. It is. It's worthwhile. And sometimes it can add up. If it's a 20-cent difference, it can add up, but like a few cents here and there. And especially if you just go in the gas station and buy whatever crap you see on the shelves, maybe you need to check yourself. But I will say it was $2.79.
Somebody, Austin and Franklin said, did you call AAA first or a divorce attorney? Probably a better question for Katie.
I think it's probably good for me that I had to leave immediately the next day. So Katie's still.
You just get out of here, please.
Yeah, just leave home now. She actually drove the rest of the way. I always drive. She's like, get in the back seat and shut up. And she drove the rest of the way home.
Wow.
Oh, good Lord.
A tick bite and you ran out of gas the same week. It's a heck of a week for Rexrode, man. Good stuff.
God, I forgot about the tick bite. Yeah. God, add that on the pile.
Good stuff. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Gentry Estes from the Tennessean will be with us. Coming up next, we'll get his thoughts on the regionals for both Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Tuesday morning. And we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Gentry Estes from the Tennessean. Gentry, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, guys. Joe, as long as I've known you, I think we could write a sitcom based off the various daily mishaps
I agree.
that you seem to encounter. You call it the misadventures of Joe Rexrode.
It's amazing. Like, how could I be this dumb at this age still? You know,
Well,
like, you're supposed to grow and evolve in life.
An underrated part of that story, I mean, Jared on the YouTube chat points this out. Poor Brennan going from a private jet to stranded on the side of the road in the span of like 2 days. So there's quite the change for you.
That actually makes me feel better. It's like, hey, here's reality now, sucker. See, this is the real life. Yeah, get used to this stuff.
Oh, it's just beautiful.
You got real ID and tick fights. I mean, it's just in the last couple of weeks.
It's been a run that Rexrode is on. No doubt about that. So, Gentry, Vanderbilt lands the number 1 overall seed heading into the NCAA tournament. And, you know, we've talked with this about you. We've talked with this a lot over the last couple of years of the run of success that Tennessee has had. And Vanderbilt has not gotten out of the regional since 2021. And some people wondered, like, have we seen the best of the Vanderbilt program? And has the game, maybe for lack of a better term, passed Tim Corbin by? How gratifying is this season? Is this number 1 overall seed for Vanderbilt in your mind? And what do you make of how Vanderbilt got to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very gratifying to this point. You get the number 1 seed, but you also win the SEC tournament and you just stomp Tennessee on the way to doing it. And as lopsided a baseball game as I think you're ever really going to see between two teams that good, Vanderbilt just worked over Tennessee in the semifinals of that tournament. Made 3 out of 4 over Tennessee this season, won a series in Knoxville. All that was very gratifying for a program that I think it hurt a lot about Tennessee the last few years, sure. But Vanderbilt's to a point now where if they don't get out of this regional this weekend, none of this is going to matter. They still have more to prove this season in terms of being able to get back to a super, get back to Omaha. And really, I think if you do that, if you get back to Omaha and you make a push there, then I think Vanderbilt can say they're quote unquote back. You know, they're back to where they were. But, you know, I think for us in the way you asked the question, it's so much of how we're viewing Vanderbilt baseball the last few years has had to do with Tennessee and the success they've had in Knoxville. Vanderbilt's program's still been, you know, pretty good the last few years. They were a national seed 2 years ago. But, you know, in baseball, it all comes down to this tournament, and Tennessee was able to go win the national title last year, whereas Vanderbilt, it's been a few years since they've done anything in this tournament.
No doubt. Obviously, they got to prove it here and make this stand up, Gentry. I still look at this team, and I'm like, you know, like a month ago, I'm like, yeah, they're pretty good, but yeah, I mean, I don't see the ingredients. I don't see the big time star power. Do they have enough power, et cetera, et cetera? And now it's like, everything has come together. Like, are you surprised, first of all, that they would rise up and get the number 1 overall seed, but just what they look like right now compared to even a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, I am. I think anybody would be. Like, say, 6 weeks ago, this team wasn't even projected to host. And now all of a sudden it's the number 1 overall seed. Now I think some of the number 1 seed just has to do with the fact that there really isn't one of those teams this year that you know, was head and shoulders ahead of the other. I think it could have been several teams, and Vanderbilt, you know, Vanderbilt had good metrics. They won the SEC tournament. Their schedule's always great every year. So it made sense that they would be the number 1. But no, this is not the kind of team that you looked at pretty much all season and thought that it had that kind of potential. And it's just a very solid, good baseball team without a lot of weaknesses. They defend wonderfully. They're well coached. They run the bases well. The pitching's been good pretty much all year, but as you said, the question with that lineup, and it's been this way for a few years now, has been the lack of power. They don't hit the kind of home runs like Tennessee and a lot of other teams. And I think some of that has to do, and it has always had to do with Hawkins Field and just the dimensions of where they play. It's a little bit more of a pitcher's park, but still, what has changed here the last month or so for Vanderbilt's team has been the hitting. That's what stepped up, and they're not hitting a ton of home runs, but they're hitting them in big moments. They've become very clutch. Their percentage in terms of hits with runners on base or runners in scoring position has gone way up here recently. It's a very clutch team. It's got a couple of walk-off home runs. You don't know if that's going to be sustainable the rest of the way, but clutch is a pretty good thing to have in this baseball tournament.
So, Gentry, on the Tennessee side of things, it looked like they were swinging the bat a little bit better, started to figure some things out prior to getting smoked by Vanderbilt in the semifinal. You look at their regional, you got Wake Forest coming in as the 2 seed, Cincinnati, and then Miami of Ohio. And if they get through that, it's likely they're going to end up going to Fayetteville, taking on Arkansas. So what do you make of the path for Tennessee and where that team is heading into the regional tournament?
Yeah, you talk about how'd you like to be Arkansas right now as the 3 seed, waiting on a rematch of Tennessee, who was there about 5 minutes ago. Meanwhile, Auburn, the 4, would get Coastal Carolina. So, I mean, I think Tennessee's opening regional is pretty manageable. I feel like they got a pretty good draw there. Wake's a good team. Wake's a good team every year. But Tennessee, as always, is going to be very, very difficult to beat in a regional setting in that venue where, pitching staff start getting depleted and you're having to get Tennessee out in that stadium where they hit a ton of home runs. And they're going to be difficult to deal with as always, but that super at Arkansas, it'd be a lot of fun to watch, but it's not going to be an easy situation for Tennessee to have to go play that thing. And, right now with Tennessee, they've been hard to figure all season. That's a very talented team. I feel like it's one of those situations where you just kind of keep waiting on them to figure it out or find what's missing, and all of a sudden they get hot and they're one of the best teams, and it just hasn't happened. If anything, it just has felt like it's trending the other direction with this year's team. It's been hard to really put a finger on why, but I tell you, the most concerning thing for me with Tennessee right now is the fact that Liam Doyle's had a couple of pretty bad starts.
Yep.
This guy's the best pitcher in college baseball for most of the season, and all of a sudden it's kind of turned on him, including at Arkansas the last couple of weeks. If that doesn't get figured out, it's hard to see Tennessee really doing much in this tournament. They need him to be a guy, and they need him to be able to rely on him for a win, so that to kind of, pick up a lineup that's been very powerful but also inconsistent, and also the rest of the pitching, especially the starting pitching, it's a bit of a question mark for Tennessee. They could definitely figure it out. They did it 2 years ago as a 2 seed and made it to Omaha, but they're kind of running out of time, and it's just a matter of consistency. They get a couple of big wins in Hoover, and then Vanderbilt absolutely destroys them in that third game.
So what do you think this year, again, without knowing how it turns out? Obviously the best case scenario is that they both get to Omaha, and it just ratchets everything up even more. But what do you think this year so far has done for the rivalry? Because look, a year ago, Gentry, and I was talking about this earlier in the show, like I remember talking with Tim Corbin after the season, it was kind of like, well, this NIL and everything, and maybe it's just, like you're wondering about the future for him. You're wondering about, is there going to be a gap that we see wide? And obviously here we are with this. What do you think this has done for the rivalry?
Yeah, I mean, no question. He's talk about with Corbin. I remember last fall going out to talk with him, and kind of brought up a lot of that with the NIL and changing landscape. And and obviously he's one of those coaches in that Nick Saban category, right? Of one that you would think, oh, maybe he doesn't like how things are. And at the time, he made a point of saying, we want to prove we can do it now with the current setup. And I got a sense even then that Vanderbilt baseball was pretty serious about getting back. They, it's talking about a very proud program that got knocked out by High Point in the regional last year. And that's, it's embarrassing for a program like Vanderbilt. And they wanted to get, I think they did a good job getting it back this year. In terms of the rivalry, sure. Tennessee had dominated this thing pretty good for a few years. And I thought, the SEC tournament game was just one of those days for Tennessee. they just no-showed that one. But the series in Knoxville was one of the most intense and entertaining things that I have covered in my time at the Tennessee. And that series in Knoxville playing out the way it did, especially that third game with it being a rain delay and then it's close at the end. And, that was a huge moment for Vanderbilt. They haven't lost since that series, sweeping Kentucky, then winning the SEC tournament. And so I think if we look back, if this Vanderbilt team does what we think they can, make a run to Omaha and really, really play for some big things here this postseason, I think we're going to look back on that series in Knoxville as a huge turning point for a lot with that program. And that was one of those that needed to happen. And you could say, it's bigger than the rivalry itself, but that rivalry has become one of probably the best in college baseball and certainly one of the best things we have going around here.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Gentry is going to be a lot of fun this time of year, always unpredictable when the regional tournaments come around. So we're looking forward to it. Appreciate you taking time to be with us this morning, and we'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Take care, guys.
Gentry Estes from the Tennessee and our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll get into Vanderbilt punching their ticket as the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament coming up next. The path for Vanderbilt and Tennessee in the regionals. Take your thoughts on that as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate Gentry Estes from the Tennessean for being with us in the last segment. Taking your thoughts on Vanderbilt and Tennessee. The draws are out for both sides. Vanderbilt earning the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They'll take on Wright State, the number 4 seed in their first game. Louisville and ETSU also in the Nashville regional as well. At Vanderbilt on the Tennessee side, they are hosting. They're the 14th seed nationally. And Wake Forest, the number 2 in Knoxville. Cincinnati, the 3, and Miami of Ohio, the number 4 seed. So, Joe, another SEC tournament championship for Vanderbilt. They lock up the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. They smoked Tennessee on the way to doing it in the semifinal matchup on Saturday, 10-0 the final in a run rule game in that one. What do you make of the significance of this accomplishment by Vanderbilt to win the SEC tournament, to land the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament heading into regional play, and what this says about Tim Corbin, Vanderbilt, the program, and where they are after maybe some doubts over the last couple of years?
Well, they're in the process of absolutely dunking on a lot of people. And look, I'll raise my hand. Like Gentry was talking about, I had my doubts, and I did look at Corbin kind of like baseball's Nick Saban, sort of the, in terms of just like long-term consistent excellence, a program in place that, consistently yields, great players, great teams, great intangibles, and just everything that you want for a college sports program at the highest level. And then all this stuff comes in, and we know what Nick Saban said when he decided to step down. And I think we talked on the show last year, Robby, about, okay, is Corbin going to consider hanging it up here real soon? And for them to come, and again, it's not like they all of a sudden came out this year. It's like, whoa, look at Vanderbilt. Holy cow. Not at all. They just consistently played good baseball. They catch the ball. They get on base, and they give pitchers hell because they are a great running team. And they've been a good offensive team. But now, like Gentry said, now they've really stepped that up to some of these young guys. Brody Johnson is the MVP, and Hoover. There's just a lot that's to be excited about with this team. And you just look at everything, look at the whole picture, and it's like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have doubted them. But look, they have had these postseason disappointments in recent years, and they certainly, like, first step is, like, you have to get to, you have to get to the supers. They haven't been to the supers, not the College World Series since 2021 when they got down to the final game and lost to Mississippi State. They haven't been to the supers since then.
Right.
And that is for Vanderbilt. Again, but it's also just compared against Tennessee. So it that's what's great about rivalries. It intensifies the disappointment when you're, because teams can go through stretches like that. But now your rival, who was previously nothing in baseball, is going to Omaha and then winning it all. And you can't get out of the first weekend. So they're in the process of dunking on everybody, but obviously this is the hardest part of the process coming up right now.
Well, they've got to do it. Like I said it earlier in the show. You're the number 1 overall seed. You need to get to Omaha. I'm not saying that they have to go win the national championship, but Vanderbilt's got to get to Omaha. The stat I read earlier from Aria Gerson from the Tennessean is pretty incredible, and I think kind of shows you where the rest of the league is too. And we had a caller talk about that earlier, but Vanderbilt, since getting to the College World Series final in 2021, they've not gotten out of the regional, which is the second longest super regional drought in the SEC, tied for the second. That's amazing. You're talking about 4 years, Joe, and it's the second longest super regional drought in the history, in the SEC right now. So that shows you where the rest of the conference is and what Vanderbilt is going up against. But now, you're the number 1 overall seed. You've got a chance here to really build on it. And I think Gentry said it really well. It's been a tremendous accomplishment by Vanderbilt to get back to this point. However, if you don't advance and you don't get out of your regional, in my opinion, if you don't get out of your super regional, what does it really mean? at the end of the day. Particularly depending on the other side of this rivalry, what Tennessee does. Like, can Tennessee get out of their regional? If they do, can they find a way to get through presumably Arkansas and get to the super regional there? Like, it's all great that they've gotten to this point and the number one seed. And I think Tim Corbin deserves a ton of credit for getting his team to battle through and get to that point this year. But now we've reached the time of year, Joe, where everybody pays attention and it really matters. And the rivalry discussions kind of ratchet up a notch here.
Yeah, and everything really is defined by what's ahead here. I mean, that's like, because again in 23, Vanderbilt was better. They didn't have the success against Tennessee, but they were better than Tennessee. They were the number 6 overall seed in the tournament. Tennessee is a 2 seed starting out on the road. Well, Tennessee goes to Omaha. Vanderbilt gets bounced in the Nashville Regional. So, and the SEC tournament, I think different programs view it differently. I think that's 5 now for Corbin that he's won. That's a lot. And that's great. Like, he cares about it and they care about it. And it's great to be able to go to Hoover, especially, it's a great opportunity for fans. I think fans like that event. So it's a big deal to win that thing. And especially if you emphasize it, that's great. But when it comes down to it, I mean, in 2023, when they lost and were eliminated by Xavier in the regional, no one gave a crap that they won the SEC tournament. It was just, that's just how it is. And that's the great thing about the baseball postseason. But I do think that they've built themselves up to, I don't think this is smoke and mirrors. I think that they have an all-around solid baseball team that should be able to do a lot of damage here this month. Or I shouldn't say this month. I should say mostly next month.
So what do you make of Vanderbilt's resurgence? They get the number 1 overall seed. Is Vandy back? Did they ever leave? What do you make of where the rivalry stands between Vanderbilt and Tennessee? We'll take your thoughts on all that coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game.
Corbs, you've won this thing 4 times, so you know what it takes beyond this point. I mean, it's a phenomenal accomplishment in this league to win this tournament. You won them both in 2019 with the tournament and then the national championship, won it again in 2023. What's the challenges after this moment as you try to make this run?
Well, I think the challenge is to put this behind you as quickly as possible. It's a nice moment, and it's a continual climb. I mean, it's another step. And once you look down the mountain, you see that you've accomplished quite a bit, but at the same time, you still got to get to the peak. And getting to the peak means winning a regional, winning a super regional, and getting to Omaha. And guys to my left are a big help in that because they haven't done it. We haven't got ourselves out of a regional. So that's a big deal for this team. There's not going to be any problems with the motivation and how we play next weekend. I can assure you of that. We'll steady it and enjoy what we've done because it's a big accomplishment. What you people do for these kids is we've got a tremendous amount of gratefulness. I mean, you guys celebrate these kids like no other, and you think about that. That's a heck of a gift to play college baseball and be in front of a lot of people. So we're just proud to be here.
That's Tim Corbin after another SEC tournament victory for Vanderbilt over the weekend, the number 1 overall seed heading into the NCAA tournament. So, Joe, it's got people asking the question, is Vanderbilt back? Did they ever leave? We talked about the numbers that Arya Gerson threw out there. They've not been out of the regional since 2021, not getting to the super since then. That's the second longest drought, tied for the second longest in the SEC. You look at, as they mentioned in that conversation, I mean, they won the tournament in 2023. They've been good. So it's not like Vanderbilt has just been awful and they've been trying to drag their way through, disappointing season after disappointing season here. They've made the regional tournament now 19 years in a row, which is the longest streak in the nation. So on one hand, if you're a Vanderbilt fan, Joe, you could say, well, what do you mean is Vanderbilt back? We never went anywhere. Like the College World Series finals of 2021 wasn't that long ago. On the other hand, you talk about the success that Tennessee's had, the inability for Vanderbilt to get out of the regional over the last few years, and kind of the conversation around them, their coach, and the program of maybe the game passing them by. So how would you answer that? Is Vanderbilt back? Did they ever leave? And what do you make of how well positioned they are to make some noise here in the postseason?
Yeah, it's like they didn't ever leave. I agree. There's a consistency. There's a certain standard there that they haven't. It's like, again, they haven't fallen off that much. 2 years ago, they were a high seed coming in this tournament. They had a great season. Last year was a disappointment, but this year has been another excellent season. Again, though, I think the whole discussion of are they back? Have they never let all that stuff? Like I'm still like, let's see what they do here. Let's see what they do in this tournament. If they get to Omaha, then yeah, it was just to me. Then you look at the whole thing, and it was just the ups and downs of a program. All programs have them. I mean, like Florida. Now Florida might be one of the most dangerous teams in this tournament, and they're I think a 2 seed, but. That's an example of a team that this year, I think at one point they're 1-10 in the SEC or something. You have ups and downs,
right.
I mean, these programs all do. But I also think that you can't ignore the changes in the sport and the fact that they have this going. And even as we've talked about recruiting, head-to-head beating Tennessee, Corbin beating Vitello for Bo Holloway. Knoxville night, United, Fridays for nights. But like he's on any front, he's right there still battling in, trying to be one of the top programs in the sport. And he's doing that now in this current environment, which does speak to, without knowing exactly what's going on, certainly Vanderbilt has adjusted to this. We've talked about it in other sports. I mean, Clark Lee last year, I mean, they raised money and they were able to be competitive in the portal, and certainly Vanderbilt baseball has too. Now, they haven't done a ton in the portal. Someone texted earlier, this is Corbin embracing the portal. I mean, it's still about, your homegrown players primarily. Some teams are out there and they just get big hitters every year. I don't know that Vanderbilt will be one of those teams, but you have to be in there. And you have to, but you remember 2 years ago, their top hitter was RJ Schreck, guy who they got in the portal from Duke. So it's not like they've been completely averse to the portal. But I do think that, it's like you have to, you always have had to thread the needle in baseball, even before all this stuff, in terms of you can recruit the top guys, but if 5 of your top recruits are all going to the pros, then what are you left with? You have to thread that needle still, and then you also have to be open to using the portal. And this to me speaks to just the determination of that program to not go anywhere despite all these changes.
Well, and I think about it kind of specifically from the Corbin part of this too. Like, Corbin, as you know, is probably one of the most competitive people I've ever met, right? Like, the guy loves winning. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody that hates losing more than he does. Like, it's people say that. Like, Tim Corbin is like the embodiment of that, right? Like, he hates losing. So, I mean, he's aware of the conversation that's been around him and his program. And Gentry Estes, I think, hit it exactly right earlier. A lot of that has to do with Tennessee, right? Like, I think it is the greatest rivalry currently going in college baseball. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of fun to discuss, as we've talked about a lot here on the show. But, that conversation that we were having at the end of last year, like, is Vanderbilt, are they going to be able to compete to the level that we've grown accustomed to them competing at over the last 2 decades, with Tennessee emerging the way that they have, and with NIL and the transfer portal and all this stuff that's circulating around college sports now? And, again, there's still work to be done. And you heard it there in that clip we played from Corbin. Like, he wanted to make sure he took time to acknowledge winning the SEC tournament, but pretty immediately was like, yeah, let's go worry about the regionals and the super regionals and get back to the College World Series. So, like, I look at it from his viewpoint of, how gratifying it must be to get to this point, but also I do think there's significant pressure on Vanderbilt moving into the end of this week of, you are the number 1 overall seed and you better get out of the regional and into the super.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's, and so it'll be interesting to see. There are some key young guys on this team. You compare Vanderbilt and Tennessee right now. Vanderbilt doesn't have guys who have played in the second weekend, for the most part. Tennessee has guys who have won it all on that roster. So how does that play into this? And then how does the pressure – the thing about it that's crazy, and I think Gentry hit it earlier, it's like, they're the number 1 overall seed. And we've talked about that forever, right? Like, that means you're not going to win it all. Tennessee finally bucks that. But for the most part, most teams, since they've had the seeding like this for 30 years, you don't win it all. But they're not your classic number 1 overall seed, whereas everybody's like, oh, the big dog, watch out for Vanderbilt. They just happen to be the number 1 overall seed. They ended up with the best resume in the end. But I don't feel like they have that number 1 overall seed pressure on them. You know what I mean?
Right.
But of course, the pressure is the failures of recent teams, and then all the conversation, because whenever there's interviews this week, that will be brought up. Of course, it will be. I mean, it should be. And so they're going to very much know the situation of, okay, there's been good Vanderbilt teams in recent years that also that have gotten to this point and they fell flat on their faces. So how do they handle that? Again, the way they're playing right now, I feel really good about their chances when you're pitching and playing defense like that. But you get into these games and the pressure is just so high. It's a great tournament. I think this tournament is, as much as I love the basketball tournament, I do think the baseball tournament is really special in terms of the format. I love the double elimination weekends, and it really gets interesting with strategy, with who you're pitching and things like that. And you slip up one time and all of a sudden you got to play more games than you bargained for, and it gets way tougher.
Well, and I feel like we have this discussion every year right around this time, Joe, over the last few years of Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Can they both get to Omaha? And if so, will they end up playing each other at some point? Like that, we have not seen, as great as this rivalry is, we've not seen it get to that level yet. And boy, it's going to happen at some point. I think at some point both teams are going to end up there and mash up against each other at some point. It would be great if it's for a national title at some point. But man, like maybe this is the year where they both get to Omaha. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and of course it happened in 21, but Tennessee, that was like the, oh my gosh, finally get to Omaha, and they were out quickly, and so they could have that year. They were on different sides. This year they would, if they're on different sides of the bracket. So if they both get there, then they would potentially be lined up for for the final series, which
that'd be something.
like that would be something. And I tell you, man, this year is a pretty good opportunity. We'll see. I mean, like if you tell me like Tennessee doesn't get out of its own regional, I could believe that because they just have found ways to lose, and there's just they have a kind of a rough vibe going right now. But they did do some good stuff in Hoover to host, and they absolutely are. To me, as talented as any team in this field. So I can see them getting hot. Definitely can see Vanderbilt doing, keep playing the way they are. We might actually get that.
The playoffs in full force in the NBA and the NHL. We'll give our thoughts on that coming up next to wrap up the show. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game.
Another empty net for Carolina. And here's a chance for Stahl. The captain carries it in, and bingo! The cherry on top of the sundae. It's 3-0 Carolina here in Game 4.
I've never seen a more delicious cherry on top of a sundae. The captain has been a beast.
Carolina stays alive yesterday. Probably delaying the inevitable. We'll see. That series at 3-1 between the Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers. So, Joe, here's where we stand in the conference finals on both sides. Panthers in the NHL up 3-1. Game 5 will be back in Carolina coming up. Edmonton a 2-1 lead in that series against Dallas. Game 4 in that one coming up later tonight. So looking forward to that. On the NBA side of things, Oklahoma City a 3-1 lead in their series against Minnesota. Game 5 back in OKC for that one. And the Knicks and the Pacers leading that one 2-1. That Game 4 in Indiana tonight in a series where the home team has not won a game yet. So we'll see if Indiana can change that tonight. Joe, let's start on the NHL front. You know, it feels like we're headed towards a rematch between Florida and Edmonton. We'll see if the Stars have anything to say about that. It can even up the series tonight in Edmonton for Game 4. I still think, Dallas-Edmonton has a chance to be pretty good. I think Carolina's cooked, and I think they have delayed the inevitable by one game. We'll see what happens in Game 5. But what do you make of the NHL playoffs to this point, where things stand in a potential rematch in the works of the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers?
Yeah, just really impressed with the Oilers. And I mean, sometimes it just really matters to have the best player, right? It's just, we've talked about Dallas, especially if they could ever get everybody healthy, looking like that's the wagon. But obviously now you have another injury. Heinz hurt. I mean, I feel like we're headed for that rematch, and I just think that good for the Canes, but that's going to be a gentleman's sweep.
Oh yeah. Which, by the way, if they seeded the playoffs properly, I think that would have been a 4-5 matchup in the first round. Could have dispersed of this beforehand, but I digress.
There you go. See, once again. So, but I'd be very excited. I know that the people traveling back and forth between those games would not be excited. It would just be like, please.
2,541 miles.
That's there you go. Way. My gosh, that's one way. 2,500 one way.
Yep,
that's a long way.
My goodness, you guys. I know a guy with a private plane. Give me a call, media folks. But I'd be excited for that. I'd be excited to watch it for sure. I think it could be pretty freaking good.
It could be. Do the Pacers take a 3-1 lead tonight, or are things going back to Madison Square Garden in Game 5, all evened up at 2?
I think the Pacers will win. I think they'll be up 3-1. But it's crazy because the Knicks are unbelievable. They're 6-1 on the road in the playoffs, but they're like 3-5 at home or something like that. Like they can't win at home. They can't lose on the road. There was a lot of freezing cold takes the other night when they're down 20. But I swear, being down 20 now in the NBA playoffs, it's like the 2-goal lead in the NHL. I mean, it's just,
it's crazy.
Down 20, you don't want to get up 20. Get yourself up 18 and then leave it there. Don't get to 20. Karl Anthony Towns, when he gets cooking, is, man, something else. It does remind me of Robert Horry from back in the day. But I think the Pacers are going to go up 3-1, and I think they're going to win the series. And then I think they're just going to get crushed by OKC because they're just flat out the best team.
OKC is unbelievable. And they win last night. Minnesota tried to mount a comeback. OKC gets it done. I think that one's probably over in 5. So when they go back home, that one's probably done at that point. I think they're going to win, and then we'll see if they can launch a dynasty like Unsportsmanlike thought last week. We'll see if that happens. Start with one.
Little premature. But SGA is incredible. I'll tell you what, Chet Holmgren, like how many elite rim protectors also can cross people over and hit threes?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, basically like Wemby and Holmgren are like the new breed of big that just it's just incredible. The combination of what they bring to a game.
Well, and they're all like 25, so that'll be fun to watch as they move forward
here.
That does it for us today. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Jason Big Joe up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.